In this video, we are going to learn more about parallel lines. I'm saying more about parallel lines because we already know what parallel lines are. Those are lines which do not meet. And we also know that they are equidistant from one another. Parallel lines are equidistant from one another. The distance between these two parallel lines are one and the same throughout, right? So now we are going to explore what happens when a transversal cuts these two parallel lines. By a transversal, I mean just a line which cuts the two parallel lines at two different points, two distinct points. One here, it cuts here, and it also cuts the other line here. So if I name this line as P and this line as Q, the transversal T cuts it in P at the first point here and Q at this point. Now, how many angles are formed when the transversal cuts these two parallel lines? We can see that 4 angles are formed when it cuts P, and 4 more angles are formed when it cuts Q. Now, the question is, can you get an intuition on the relationship between these angles? Do you feel that some angle may be equal, or there may can you guess if there is any relationship between the two angles? Now let me redraw these lines for you. So this is a set of parallel lines and the transversal is cutting this line. So what about these two angles? The parallel lines are just in two different positions, but the lines are the same, isn't it? These two lines are the same lines. The inclination or the slope of the lines is the same, and the slope of the transversal is obviously the same throughout. So can I say that these two angles, if I call this angle as A, this angle also would be A, right? I think you would have guessed this by now. Intuitively, you can say that the two angles are the same. Of course, there is a proof for this, but since now this can be understood by all of us, we would go into the proof later on. After some maybe 1 or 2 years, you would be able to do this proof. So the angles A and A are same. Now let me write it here. So this is A. Now let us look at these 4 angles first. Now what about the angle here adjacent to A? Now P is a straight line. So angles made on the straight line would be equal to 180 degrees, isn't it? So the angle in white, or the angle A, and this angle which I have marked here in brown, if I add those two angles, the sum should be equal to 180 degrees. So can I write this angle as 180 minus A? Isn't it? So if this is A, this is 180 minus A. So the sum of both A plus 180 minus A would be equal to 180 degrees, as they are angles in a straight line. So can I say the same thing about the angle here? So the transversal is also a straight line. So what about A and the angle which I have marked in red? This would also be equal to 180 minus A, right? And the same argument holds here. If I mark the adjacent angle in black, the sum of these two angles, as P being a straight line once again, you have the sum of these two angles also should be equal to 180 degrees. So this is also A. So now one angle, if you know one angle, you can find the measures of the other 3 angles. Now I can carry on the same argument to Q. Now by this argument, I say that this is also A. So I repeat everything what I said for P, and now you know the measures of all these angles, isn't it? This is 180 minus A, this is A, and this again is 180 minus A. I hope you followed me along in this video. I tried to give you a strong understanding of the angles which are formed when a transversal cuts the parallel lines. So let us now see in our next video about a few more things. Let me just show you. Here you have this as your transversal. What if the transversal has a different slope? Does it still hold? Let's check it out. Now this here the angles are, if this is A, this is also A. This is what is equal. Now I am just going to change the inclination of the transversal. See, this way. Still, I'll just change my color because this A is confusing. I'll call it maybe B now. So this one is also B, right? Let me change the slope further. Just changed it totally to the other side, right? Now let's see. I'll use white here. Look at this angle C. This would also be equal to C. So however the transversal cuts the two parallel lines, it may be like this, it may be like this, whatever the slope is, whatever we have seen here holds true. The relationship between the angles holds true. However, the transversal cuts this set of parallel lines. I hope you understood. Thank you.